Welcome to Season 8 of the Charity Matters podcast. I'm Heidi Johnson, nonprofit founder, lifelong helper, and your host. I've been interviewing modern-day heroes for over a decade with my blog, and I'm so excited to be sharing these inspiring conversations in our podcast. Join me as we learn the challenges and stories of innovators, entrepreneurs, and modern-day heroes who solve the problems of humanity. Did you know that 1 in 11 children will lose a parent or sibling before they turn 18? Today's guest is no stranger to this fact. Susie Shaw is the founder of Williams Be Yourself Challenge, and I'm so excited to share her incredible journey and our conversation about what she is doing to make an enormous difference in the world for grieving children and their families. I'm so excited to have Susie Shaw joining us today from Williams Be Yourself Challenge. Welcome, Susie. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, I am so grateful to be here. Thank you so much, Heidi.
This is really exciting for me. And I have to say, people reach out to me all the time, but not, I'm flattered and I'm touched, but with 1.6 million nonprofits in the United States, you can't you can't be there for every single person, every single call, but your note touched me so deeply, and I love what you're doing that I'm so excited to share this with our audience. So I'm really
thank you so much. I actually didn't know that. So I'm really grateful to hear that.
Yes. So I'm really excited. So before we jump into kind of the whole story and everything, why don't you just tell everyone really quickly what Williams Be Yourself Challenge, or WBYC, is and what it is that you guys do?
Well, that it needs a little bit of introduction because we started the organization shortly after my son William died. He died in 2019. We were on a family ski trip out in Montana, and he was 9 at the time of his death. And there was an accident, and he died. And as you can imagine, it was one of the most painful and excruciating events that I've ever experienced. And also, the beauty that came from my community after he died was incredible. I live in a very small town, Carlisle, Massachusetts, and there's only about 3,000 people who live here. And so it's very close-knit. Everybody knows everybody. And the school where the children go, it's a K-8 school. That's the center of our town.
Right.
So when William died, he was in 3rd grade. The whole town suffered with us. Obviously, it was more traumatic for my immediate family.
Right.
But the entire town held us through those initial months and years. And as time went on, I started to notice and hear from some of William's friends' parents that they were still struggling in their grief, say a year or 2 years after William had died. Meantime, myself, my husband, and my surviving son, Kai, who was 6 at the time of William's death, we were getting support. We were going to the grief groups, which we still go to today. We had our therapists. We were able to do all of those things because there are services for people like us. There aren't services for best friends who die, right? If you're the best friend of a little boy who dies, there's no support group for that.
Right.
And because I was so close with all of these families, and all of our kids were all friends, I hated what I was seeing for them. And so a group of moms got together with my permission, and they decided to put on our very first event. It was called the Williams Flat Brim Parkour Challenge. One of William's favorite sports was parkour, and it's a super fun and inclusive sport. And so they invited William's coaches from the gym that he trained at to come and teach his peers and some of the other kids in the community how to do parkour. And
so fun.
Yeah. And we now I think this spring will be our 4th event with the parkour club. And so we saw the excitement and the beauty and the love that all these kids felt for each other while honoring William.
Right.
And they sort of had that agency over their feelings, and it gave them an outlet to put some of those really big, hard feelings that they were having. So, Williams Be Yourself Challenge sort of spawned out of that inaugural event. We went on that same year to host an educational lecture. We brought in a therapist to talk about grieving for the community. We also held a remembrance event on William's birthday, which is December 20th, a very dark time of year. And we invited the community to gather and light luminaries in his honor. And now it's, again, I think this was the 4th year that we did it in December. And we invited folks to send us names of their lost loved ones that they
beautiful.
So we were trying to normalize saying your dead people's names out loud, bringing those people in to the present.
Right. The best way to honor them.
Absolutely. Like, let's say their names. Let's talk about them. Let's tell their stories. So WBYC.
Go ahead.
Well, WBYC has just taken on this role in the community of being an inclusive place where kids feel like they belong. Kids feel like, again, they have that agency over their feelings.
Right.
And we're just trying to promote, feeling good no matter how you're feeling.
Right. Because grief is a monster. It is a monster that comes in. I mean, children are afraid of the monster under the bed, but grief is really the ultimate monster. Doesn't matter your age. No. When it comes, it is the scariest, most isolating, overwhelming, terrifying feeling that you've never felt before. The only thing I could even equate it with was kind of pity, and it isn't it, and yet it's kind of a kindred spirit to pity, but it isn't pity, and it is the most horrific thing. So I just think that's so incredibly beautiful. But before we get into like the whole story a little bit deeper, I'm just curious, when you were growing up, were you always in a community that was supportive? Were you volunteer? Were your family philanthropic?
I was thinking about that, and not especially, I'll be honest.
There's no judgment. There's no judgment.
No, I mean, I had 2 working parents. They worked really hard. And I don't know if there was a lot of room for that in our family life.
Right.
I certainly remember being part of the clubs in high school where we put on the dances and we did the floats, and
right.
I was very active in that
volunteering. Right.
But no, I was raised in a very loving family, and we were very connected to each other. But I just don't know if there was a ton of space. My dad worked 2 jobs, and so they were pretty focused on.
Well, and I totally get. I'm always fascinated because not one nonprofit founder I've ever interviewed, when they grew up, said they wanted to be a nonprofit founder. Right? There's this whole slew of things that happen, and sometimes there's like an early trail or an early path when you look in the rearview mirror, and sometimes there's not, and it's not always a clear shot. But I'm always just curious if there are things. I'm always trying to find somewhat common traits, because to me, nonprofit founders are kind of the angels on earth and the angels among us, and people who take their pain and recycle it for purpose and use it to make sure that it doesn't happen to the next guy. And that's pretty much how everyone starts. Something happens and there's a moment, and then they know they have to do this. So I'm curious, what was your moment? Obviously you lost William, which was beyond a moment. Was beyond. But when did you know? I mean, obviously you lost William, but when did you have a moment that you're like, we have to do something to get back? Or was there a...
So there sort of was. So WBYC definitely happened organically with the support of a lot of the other moms in Carlisle.
Right.
And that has always felt wonderful. I, however, personally, a few years after we started WBYC, also started educating myself in the grief space, taking courses, going to conferences, because I just felt such a connection to grievers. I feel so comfortable being in a room full of people who want to talk about how to grieve, what is grief. Like those are my people.
Right, right.
And
I get that.
And I also realized how privileged my family has been in our grief journey and the support that we have received through the therapy that I was talking about, through our beautiful community, and also through one of the things that our family did a lot. Well, my husband got to take 6 months off of work. He was a partner in his firm, and he just said, "I need 6 months." That is not the norm.
Right.
The norm is days, right? Like if sometimes no days, but the norm is just a few days.
Right.
We had this unbelievable privilege of him taking those 6 months, and we got to travel as a new family of 3 to figure out what it felt like. We got to create some new memories. And so all this stuff that happened in the early months after William died was percolating in me. And a while after, I was like, I wish other families could have this. I wish other families could go away, because sometimes home is hard.
Right. Well, home is there. All the grief triggers lie there, right? All those triggers are there.
The bedroom is there. The toys are there. He was a spouse. His shaving equipment is right there. It's
right.
There's all these reminders, even to the local grocery store. You run into the people who want to support you, but also are kind of looking at you like, "Oh, how you doing?"
It's so hard, right? People who haven't walked it don't know what to say and what to do, and it's very hard for people.
Just want to get away,
right?
And so we haven't gotten to this yet, but I'll throw it in now. Our newest initiative under WBYC is something we're calling the Greenhouse. We're currently raising money to be able to buy a single family home for families who have suffered the loss of either a child or a parent. And we want to be able to give 52 families per year a free week-long vacation.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, because so this was my spark. I realized that getting away was so incredibly important for our family. And now all I want to do is allow other families to have a week isn't long enough, but it's something.
Right.
And so,
well, and I mean, I've interviewed so many amazing nonprofit founders who have lost children, and grief is so difficult. Losing a child is unimaginable, inconceivable for most people. It's a whole other next level.
Yeah.
But then you take on the entrepreneurship. I mean, I always say nonprofit founders are a little bit crazy, and we're a little bit crazy. We're kind of a crazy crew. We're a little bit type A. We're dreamers, we're entrepreneurs, and we're doers. And we're connectors because and you were already connected to your community. So you were already a connector. And so there's so much that happens in that moment. What were some of the challenges? Besides you're navigating grief, you still have, a family, you still have laundry, you still have, right?
Absolutely.
You still have bills, and your husband has a job, and you have buckets of tears, and you've got your girlfriends, and you've got all this. And then you're like, but I'm gonna create this thing, and I'm gonna help people so that
I know, right?
What were some of the challenges of just navigating the early stages of entrepreneurship is really what I'm going to say.
Well, yeah, because it is, I am an entrepreneur. I am
100%
in a business.
Yes, you are.
And that was something I had never done before. Like this wasn't me. And I know this isn't sequential, but I will go back and tell you my first job out of college, I was in the nonprofit space. And I've been in the I worked for the United Cerebral Palsy of Chicago. I was their events planner, and it was an amazing job out of college. And then I worked in the museum space. I was at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, in their development office. I was at the LA County Museum of Art,
in my neighborhood
in Los Angeles.
In LACMA, yeah.
So I've had this, past of service, and understanding the world of philanthropy and giving.
Well, that's a huge advantage right there.
Huge.
Huge.
I certainly don't know enough. And I've built.
You never do, by the way, but that's okay.
So, but some of my challenges have been being the starter. Before, when I was in nonprofit, I was the worker. I was told what to do. Now I'm telling people what to do, and I'm walking that line of trying not to control too much, but needing help, finding the right help. We've really tried to diversify our board or our advisory committees.
Right.
Our board started as a bunch of Carlisle moms who wanted to support our children. And, now we need expertise in real estate, in planned giving, in law. And so we're starting to add some of those folks to our advisory committees for this particular project. So that's been interesting.
Well, and you're 4 years in since you've had your 501c3. What year did you get your 501c3?
22. So
in 2022.
We just did 3 years in March. And we just launched, we sort of developed the new initiative just this past fall. So it's pretty new.
For the greenhouse. Wow. I mean, and this is, I will say we're kind of our own worst enemy because, we start out like, if we can just help one family, if we can just help one child, if we can just do and then we start setting these goals and we start stretching it and so we kind of do it to ourselves, but that's what we're here to do. We're here to serve other people. And
I can't see any other path for me right now.
Right.
Like William died, my entire life changed.
100%.
I am a mother and I have 2 living children as well, but like I identify as a bereaved mother.
Right.
Sometimes first, because it has changed me so much, more than even becoming a mother. Losing a child has changed me more than in giving birth to 3 children.
Absolutely. And I will say, everything begins with loss, and it's the most horrible beginning.
Yeah.
But yet this legacy that you're creating for William is really spectacular. So talk to me about what fuels you when you're doing laundry and you got groceries and you got to get the kids to wherever you got to get them, and life is crazy and you have a board call or whatever. What fuels you to keep going in those moments like, oh my God, what have I done?
I just think about the families that I want to serve because I know what it feels like to need that support, and I've walked their path, and I certainly don't want to, insinuate that I know what every grieving family feels like, because every grieving family has their own unique story.
Right.
However, I do think that some of the things we want to do, that I want to do for these families, are universal. You want to be cared for. You want to be seen in your grief. You want to be witnessed in your grief and know that somebody is looking out for you who understands.
Right.
And so that's what I think about when I get off a call with a potential donor who just doesn't get it.
Right.
and isn't interested in the project.
Right.
I feel bad.
It happens.
It happens. You're not going to relate to everybody.
Correct.
And I get down on it, I'm like, oh gosh, is this ever going to work? Are people going to want to support this project? But again, I go back to the families because I've been there and I know how painful it is. I just want to be able to give other families that same little bit of hope, that they're going to be able to survive. I was so afraid that my family would disintegrate after William died. I thought my husband and I would get divorced, that my son Kai would go off the rails. I saw it all going away.
Right.
And we got, like I said, a ton of support, a ton of guidance, and we're doing wonderful now. You know, as much as we can without William.
Right.
We brought a new child into our life. We have a 4-year-old Bodhi. I mean, he is.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you. I mean, he is just the best thing that we could have done for our family.
Oh.
But it's all because
you have a 4-year-old at a nonprofit. Oh my God.
Yeah. No, and it's funny because
Susie, I have a whole new level of respect for you right now.
So we're an all volunteer our organization. I don't get paid. My board, the people who help us don't get paid. And I am paying a babysitter to watch my son. So
of course you are. Right. I get that. When I started a nonprofit in 2002, after losing my mom in a tragic car accident, and we provided chaplains of all faiths at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. It was 5 years as a volunteer of starting the organization, running it. And I had 3 little boys, they were 6, 4, and 1. And
my gosh.
And I remember days thinking, what am I doing? But like you, our community gave us so much that in a lifetime, I felt I couldn't pay it back. I couldn't pay it forward. And now looking in the rearview mirror 22 years later at the, tens of thousands of families that have had chaplains by their bedside in some of their hardest moments.
Unbelievable.
It shifted my life, right? I mean, in horrible and beautiful ways all at once, and the chaos of raising small children and doing nonprofit work all at once. So I have been where you are, and you will survive, and you will look back, and it will be fantastic. But talk to me about success. I know, in the nonprofit space, we write these, I would say, horrible, I shouldn't say horrible, but grants. I have such a love-hate relationship with funding and impact, and because obviously people want to, they want to bet on a winning horse. They want to know that they want to invest in impact, but success isn't always statistics and numbers and people served or hours volunteered or whatever. It can be so many things. So what does it look like for you?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this because I'm writing a lot of grants myself, and they want to know, how are you going to measure, what you do for your guests, your clients. And it's hard to quantify because what we're trying to do is such an emotional experience. Like we don't have a program that we're hiring, therapists to execute with an immeasurable results.
Right.
However, I do think about success in getting feedback from a family who spends a week at our house and telling me that it was transformative, that it was healing, that it was important. I also think about those families then telling their friends about it, and maybe those friends then donate to us. That to me is a measure of success.
Right.
Or those guests that come to our house and say, tell their grief support groups about it, and you've got to apply to come, and in like a referral system.
Right.
So that's a measure of success, that people are recognizing that this is a needed service within the grief space, and spreading the word. And in another way, like if we can have more of these homes. Right now, it's just fun. Like if we had a network of grief retreat homes for families, I mean, we could have one on the West Coast. We could have one in the Midwest. That would be beyond my wildest dream.
Well, I was going to say, what's your big dream? But I think you beat me to the question. You already answered it. Is that really? Because as an entrepreneur, you have to have a vision and you have to have a dream. And as I said, we are our own worst and best enemies sometimes. But these dreams become real. When we started Spiritual Care, we thought, well, what if we could have like an interfaith center in the hospital that that chaplains and that nurses and doctors and families that are struggling could go and have quiet or whatever. And we threw that out there, and everyone looked at us like we're crazy. 22 years later, we have a $10 million interfaith center that is
Wow.
unbelievable. And hospitals all over the country come to Children's Hospital LA to look at our model. So it happens, Susie. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, no.
so is that the big dream?
It
Is
is. It is because then we could serve double and triple
right?
and quadruple the amount of families. With one house, we can serve 52 families a year if we were to have
Right.
people there all year. I'm sure you know, oh, well, maybe you don't know, Judy's house in Denver, and
I don't know that, but there's a couple I've talked to someone. There's two other people I've homes. I want to say one is Wisconsin or something that I've.
oh, well, no, Judy's house is they're a grief support group out of Denver, but they partner with New York Life
Okay.
Foundation, and they are responsible for sort of quantifying data around bereaved families.
Oh,
Their newest report has just come out, and they have found that 1 in 11 children will suffer the loss of a sibling or a parent before they turn 18.
wow.
That is so many families,
Right.
so many families. And so 52 to me sounds like an amazing feat, but that's barely scratching the surface of how many families need grief support. Um,
Right.
so, if we can have more, let's have more. Like I was talking to somebody the other day, and she's like, maybe we could figure out a franchise model. I'm like, yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, it happens. It happens, and it's not never say never,
No,
because and I know you probably know that you've probably had so many signs from William, and when you're doing the right thing, doors keep opening for unexpected reasons. People can call them coincidences or miracles or whatever you want to call them. But if you have lived a loss and you've started a nonprofit, you know what I'm talking about, because things just keep happening that keep pointing you in the direction, and somehow keeps telling you to go forward when some days it feels really hard.
absolutely. I want to just go back and tell you one more measure of success
Yes,
for,
please.
for WBYC in general, because I don't want to leave out the community programming that we are concurrently doing and will continue to do within the Carlisle community here. So when we first started WBYC, my son Kai, he was probably 8 or 9, and he didn't talk too much about William out in public. At the dinner table, we were always talking about William. In our family home, we were all very comfortable talking about William. But in the larger public, Kai was more reserved. He just
Right,
wasn't ready to be out there with William and his loss, and I totally respected that. Um,
right.
and about a year in to having all these WBYC programs, we were at one of the Brighten the Night event where we were selling our luminary kits for the remembrance event we do in December. And Kai and his best friend were at the selling table. And Kai started telling complete strangers about WBYC, about his brother, how he died, what we were doing, why we were doing it. And for me, like, it was just like, that's it. This is why we're here. This is why we are
Right,
doing it, because we are allowing these kids to start to feel comfortable with big, hard feelings. We're starting to
right,
normalize talking about things like a grief and sharing
right.
that and knowing that it's okay to share. It was one of the most beautiful moments that I've gotten to witness
Oh,
with my own son. He certainly didn't need to do that, but he
right.
felt ready, and I was so proud that he wanted to do that. So for me, seeing the kids here in our community having moments like that, having
Right,
moments to connect in their new hard things. Um,
right,
Somebody's parents are going to get a divorce, if someone's grandmother passes away. Uh,
right.
all of those things are going to create these feelings, and where do we put them? Like, we have to share them with each other and able to get through them. And I think
Absolutely.
our community events here in Carlisle kind of help to remind kids and their parents that we're here for them.
In our family growing up, my dad was in the recycling business, and he used to say to us when we were young, if we had if we were angry, we had a bad day at school, whatever our emotions were. And granted, this was in the 70s when people really didn't talk about how they felt. But he would just say, if you have trash, take out your trash. Don't take it out on your sibling. Go ride your bike. Go jump on, up and down in the backyard. Go climb a tree, whatever it is. But what are you going to do with your trash? And it was kind of this thing in our family about, you have all these feelings. What are you going to do with it? And it's really interesting to me because I do a lot of public speaking now, and I talk a lot about recycling. Recycling those feelings.
And you wrote that to me, that I'm recycling I love that phrase.
Because it's how I grew up. My dad ran a recycling company, and we talked a lot about it. When you mentioned earlier how much you've changed, and because you cannot experience, I guess you can, but most people cannot have that level of loss and not come through shifted. It's life altering, and everything changes. So how do you think you've changed?
I think I'm a better person. I really do.
Oh.
And I talk a lot with other bereaved moms, and there's a similar sentiment among many of us. We were I was cracked open, right? Everything just came pouring out, the good, the bad,
right.
All of it. And I guess I just feel like I've grown so much in my empathy for all types of people.
Right.
Especially with my little 4-year-old, I am so much more patient, because I view motherhood in a new way that we just need to slow down.
Amen.
And that's been really huge for me, just to take it day by day. And I'm not trying to be out there, like, oh, I'm grateful for every moment, like not that kind of day by day, but just like, there's no rush in any of this. Like, let's just be really intentional about what we decide to do today or this week or this month. And that's really helped me slow down in everything.
Right.
But yeah, I feel like I'm a better human being because I've
pretty remarkable.
Something really awful. Another thing that I have found too, with child loss, is like, I have such better boundaries.
Learning to say no is a gift, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was always like, oh, of course. Oh, I should. I'll definitely, sign me up anytime,
Right.
I was one of the pleasers. And now I'm so much more protective of my own time, my own heart, my space, my family's space. So, recently my church was like, oh, could you, join us in baking the gingerbread houses for the Christmas sale? I was like, no, I don't have time. I don't.
Right.
I said no, and confidently said no.
Right. It's okay to say no. It's okay. What we have, we can only give when our cup is full, right? And there's no, and I think that's why they say put the mask on first. And there's such burnout with the nonprofit, not only founders, but people who work in the nonprofit space, because we're givers. We're pleasers, we're givers, we're helpers. We're yes people. Sure. And it's because it's not like, oh yeah, I don't need that project at work. It's like somebody isn't going to get grief help, or someone isn't going to be fed, or there's a bigger piece of humanity that when someone will survive without their gingerbread house. If someone else makes it, it's going to be okay. But we have to say yes to so many big things that it's learning to say no is a gift, because it's important that we can keep going, right?
It's a big reset for me. And I also, started to prioritize my life in a different way, deciding what was most important and what things could fall off, what people could fall off, right? Or what people I wanted to focus on more.
Well, and you realize how, when you have a loss, especially tragic loss, which, you and I both had, in different ways, but one of the gifts that I felt is just realizing how short and precious our one beautiful life is, and how we use that time. You have a new appreciation of what's important and that time and how you use it. And it becomes very clear
Yeah.
that I don't want to say it's black and white, but it kind of is. It becomes very obvious. It's like you have these new glasses that just tell you this is important, this
Yeah.
isn't.
Yeah, I mean, I even look at like my son Kai, who's soon to be a teenager. I don't think I was ever like an uber tiger mom, like really aggressive about where he needed to land in life. You know, if he had to get into this car, I wasn't really aggressive in that, but
Right.
I thought about it. Um,
Right.
and now it's like wherever Kai goes is going to be beautiful.
Huh.
He is a beautiful human. He's going to make so much with his life just because of who he is and how he walks through the world. And that's so like liberating.
Right. Right.
So like he's going to get what he needs, no
Right.
matter if I'm, up at 2 a.m., making sure his SAT scores are that I kind of put that to the side because
Right.
because it's just not important to me anymore.
Yeah.
His living is important.
Right. His
Uh,
life and right. I mean, I just think that is the gift of loss.
yeah.
It's the craziest thing that we get this with such horrible pain, but we get these beautiful lessons. So what do you think is that like your biggest life lesson that you think that you've learned is besides saying no and your
I
time,
think
your
so.
parenting?
Yeah, the way that I interact with my immediate family has changed for the better.
Right.
We're just a lot more present and mindful in what we choose to do and where we choose to
Right.
focus our energy because one of us is missing, and he's going to be
Right.
missing forever. Um,
Right.
and so we want to make the most of what we have now. Like, and I know it sounds trite, but like, don't sweat the small stuff. Like, I used to let small stuff, ruin my day, ruin
Right.
ruin
Right.
months. And it's like I take the small thing in, I have it for a minute, and then I let it out because it's so small. So much
Right.
is small when compared to the death of my child. You know,
Right.
and and you don't know that until you go through it, and I don't want other people to ever have to go through it, so I'm just going to tell all of the listeners that
Everyone listening.
you you can choose to not sweat the small stuff. Do it.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
liberating.
It it is liberating. It is, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. There is stuff that shows up that we're like, "What the heck?"
Yep, but you hold on to it for just a
But
little.
you don't carry it. You don't
Yeah.
carry it because
Yep.
you just can't. You just there's also it's like you don't have space for that anymore.
Yeah.
You just don't have space, and I think it's so interesting to me because and I also think that people find, and I found at least, nonprofit founders, 95% of them have had a loss of some sort, and I would say 5% had a near miss and gratitude. This is
Yeah.
just my personal statistics and nobody else's. Um, but we all have such joy.
Yeah.
We've all had this horrible loss, but we find gratitude in all of these little, whether it's moments with your child, whatever we find gratitude in places we never found it before. And then with that loss comes gratitude, with that gratitude comes joy.
Yeah.
And people are always like, you're so joyful, or other people I interview, like there's like something about us that is similar. And it's such a crazy thing to think that we had to go through such pain to
Yeah.
find joy, right?
And yeah, I was a fairly happy person before William died. It was very silly.
Right.
I loved to have a good time. Um, and that all sort of disappeared in those first few months and even years after William died. It was so hard and it was so dark.
Worse.
And also, we are so happy now too. Like we have to
Right.
hold both, right?
Right.
We are happy and our son is dead, but there is joy in our life again. There is
Right.
light in our life again, mostly caused by our 2 living children.
Right.
Because they're just so amazing and joyful. Can't help but get lost in it. Yeah, and I like, I walk around and I smile all the time, which
Right. And
I didn't see happening in those initial months, right? Like,
of course.
I never thought I would laugh again.
Right.
And here I am laughing with you.
But it's the miracle. And I think that what you're saying, it gives hope to some people, especially if someone listening is grieving, or
Yeah.
someone who knows someone who's lost someone who wants to share this episode with them, because there is another side. It is a horrible, horrible, dark time and process, but it there is another. You can get you
You
can get
can,
through it.
you can. But I do believe that you need to do work, right? Like you have to seek out those support systems.
Well, there is such beauty and joy, and I also think there's such beauty and joy in service. And
I was just going to say that I think that, finding purpose after loss is really critical to the healing journey. And you can find that purpose in so many ways. And it from what you're saying, it sounds like a lot of people find it in nonprofit service. Whether it's starting a nonprofit or joining an already existing group, but it feels so good and right to be able to give back. I personally have learned so much about grief and the grieving process, that I do want to share that with others. I still go to the grief support group that we joined about a month after William died. So we've been there 6 years, and so now I'm one of the veterans of the group, and we get new families coming in, and they are just as lost as I was when I started. And I get to share some of the wisdom that I now have. And
right.
I remember when I first joined, some of the veterans sharing their wisdom with me. And it made me see that there was hope and light, if I just did the work and got that support.
So beautiful.
So giving back when you are ready, because
Right.
it's gonna take some time. It's not
Oh yeah.
immediately.
Oh yeah.
Because you do need to focus on you first, you know.
Right.
Like I said, I think we founded our nonprofit in 2022. William died in 2019. So what is that? 4 years or 3?
Yeah. 3, something like that.
But in the meantime, I had a baby. There was COVID, so there was a couple other things that stalled us. Maybe I don't know,
just a couple little life events. Yeah.
But I don't think we would have been ready before 2022, and then the greenhouse. That's what, almost 6 years after he died. That's when that idea came to fruition. So it's the service is out there, the purpose is out there, but it doesn't have to be right away. And you don't have to do it outwardly either.
Right.
People should know that there's a lot of different options.
There's so many options to give. And I, not to put a shameless plug for my book, Change for Good, but throwing in a shameless plug here, because one of the things, the thesis of it is that there is no silver bullet in life.
Yeah.
But if there was, it would be helping someone else.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only thing that really heals us. There's a lot of things that heal us. And like you said, there's a lot of process to the healing. And it's not magic and it's not instant and there's a time for it. But there is something so cathartic about knowing that somehow your life has been a small cog in somebody else's. And Absolutely. It shifts you in a way that nothing else can. Nothing else can.
I occasionally receive feedback from different people, and I am amazed at how my story and what I have done touch other people, whether they're grievers or not, just part of the community. And I'm so grateful for that. I've been told that, people parent their kids differently from reading my Substacks that I write about my grief. It's amazing. I love to know that. And that propels me for sure.
I love that. Well, tell us where we can support you, how we can help to build the greenhouse, where we can find you, where we can find you on Substack, all of it. Give us all the information.
Absolutely. So, lots of places. So
Great.
our website is, you can find us at wbycgiving.org. We shortened it. It used to be williamsbeyourselfchallenge.org. But we decided to do a direct link.
There you go.
I'm on Instagram as Bereavement Mom. I really am leaning into my role as a bereaved mom. And I feel really powerful in that role. So I share a lot of tips about grief and parenting and things about the greenhouse on my Instagram at Bereavement Mom. I'm also on Substack, and I write letters to William. Which is one of my favorite things to do these days. I really connect with him on a different level by writing to him. And that, again, that's on Substack, and I'm also Bereavement Mom on there.
Oh, I love that. Susie, you are a bright light, and you are such a joy and a gift. And I'm just so grateful for you for sharing your story with us and William's story. And it really brings me such joy to bring these stories and these beautiful stories of service and healing and kindness and goodness to our audience and to the world. So thank you for being so generous and sharing that with us today.
Oh, I'm thrilled. This has been absolutely wonderful. Highlight of my week, Heidi.
Oh, well, and you mine. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Charity Matters podcast. I really enjoyed talking to our guest, Susie Shaw, about what it takes to start a business that truly changes people's lives. I think her comment about knowing what matters was so inspiring and true. To learn more about these modern day heroes, or if you'd like to reach out to us, visit us at charity-matters.com or connect with us on Instagram at Charity Matters. If you enjoyed our conversation, we would love it if you shared this with your family and your friends. But please don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. But more than that, thank you for caring, for believing in goodness, and for being a part of our movement. You are exactly what the world needs more of. Remember that together we can make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. Charity